welcome to the deep dive. So you've done the work. You're probably someone who has, studied the charts, perfected your technical analysis, and you know your strategy inside and out. But let me challenge you on something. If you're relying purely on indicators and patterns, you are missing the most critical element of high-stakes performance.
It's the ultimate paradox of trading, isn't it? People spend 99% of their time looking for a mechanical edge.
The perfect entry.
Exactly. The flawless exit signal. And maybe 1% of their time managing the person who's actually executing that strategy.
And that's where the trouble starts. Have you ever felt that stomach-dropping frustration after a perfect setup goes bad?
Or hesitated at the exact moment you should have pulled the trigger.
Worst of all, letting anger or desperation take over, leading you to a completely irrational trade you knew was wrong.
If you answered yes to any of those, you've hit the core conflict. The battle isn't external, it's internal.
And this deep dive is, it's your shortcut to mastering that internal landscape. We are diving into the systematic approach laid out by Jared Tendler.
Right, from his work in the mental game of trading. And what makes this material so compelling is that Tendler didn't start with traders. He built this system working with elite poker players.
And top-tier athletes.
And top-tier athletes, yeah. It's a step-by-step system for high-pressure situations.
That distinction is so key. This isn't just motivational fluff, right? This is a proven methodology for building mental toughness. It's designed to be applied systematically.
Almost like a piece of software you install in your brain.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack the root causes of failure. We're talking fear, greed, tilt, and most importantly, provide the tools to train your mind for consistent, disciplined execution.
We're going to treat these mental barriers as solvable technical problems, not personal flaws.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into this revolutionary idea, because it fundamentally challenges how you think about your own frustrated or panicked emotional responses. The common reaction when we feel fear or greed is to try and push it down. We see it as an enemy.
Absolutely. A distraction that needs to be suppressed. Traders believe that if they could just stop feeling fear, they'd be successful. But Tendler's core concept, it just flips this on its head.
How so?
Emotions aren't distractions. They are invaluable signals. They're giving you immediate feedback about a problem in your strategy or your behavior that needs to be fixed.
So you're saying that feeling of pure panic before putting on a massive short is actually helpful?
It is, if you interpret it correctly. Think of the hot stove analogy.
Okay.
If you touch a hot stove, your immediate reaction is to pull your hand back. That happens before your conscious mind even processes the pain.
Right. It's a survival signal.
It's a survival signal intended to prevent significant loss. And trading emotions work the exact same way. If you feel intense anxiety before hitting execute, that's not just self-doubt, it's a signal.
A signal telling you what?
It could be that you're over-risking your position, or maybe you lack true statistical faith in your strategy's edge.
And if you just ignore that anxiety, if you push through it, make the trade, maybe you win, maybe you lose, but you've totally missed the lesson.
And that lesson will come back, inevitably, often at a far higher cost when the emotion overwhelms you during a much larger trade.
Which leads to this dilemma, right? Most people handle these signals in one of two flawed ways.
Yep.
They either bottle them up, suppress them until they just explode in a moment of pure tilt.
Or they immediately let the emotion take over. They let fear or greed dictate every single decision in the heat of the moment.
And both of those paths lead to just wildly inconsistent performance.
Severely inconsistent. Consistency requires a structured system to process the signal and then apply a real solution.
Which brings us to why a system is so essential. The best traders, like the best athletes, they don't rely on brute force.
No.
They recognize that emotional patterns are predictable, and they build a structure to handle them proactively.
And the structure that provides the greatest single aha moment in this material is the inchworm concept. It's a powerful analogy for identifying the real work required for growth.
The inchworm concept. It sounds simple, but is a really brilliant visualization. How does it map onto trading?
Okay, so visualize an inchworm moving. It advances its front end forward, but then, and this is the critical part, it pulls its back end up to meet the front before it extends again.
Right.
We can map this to your progress. The front end represents your peak performance, your best technical skills, your flawless decision-making.
The trades you just nail perfectly.
Exactly. And the back end, that represents your emotional weaknesses, your worst habits, your repeated mistakes.
Your lack of discipline. It's the anchor.
It is the anchor. And the pitfall most traders fall into is that they spend all their time just pushing the front end. They're constantly learning a new indicator, tweaking their strategy.
Reading more books, yeah. Obsessed with improving their peak skills.
But they ignore that anchoring back end. The deep-seated biases, the revenge trading, the inability to stick to the plan when stress hits.
So you can improve your skills dramatically, but if your worst habits are still there, they just drag everything down.
True. Systematic improvement requires advancing your best skills and systematically fixing those worst habits.
So to move that back end, you have to find the root cause, not just the surface issue. Like the surface issue might be frustration after a loss.
That's the symptom.
Right. And the error is cutting a winner early. How do you start that diagnosis to find the deep root cause?
This is the structured process. You have to move past the symptom and ask targeted questions. Don't just ask, did I ignore the plan? Ask, 1, what was the specific action?
For example, I added risk to a trade that was already in profit.
Okay. Then 2, what was the emotional trigger? I felt invincible, or I felt a sudden spike of FOMO.
And then 3, describe the specific thought pattern, like, this trade is so good it can't possibly fail. I should make up for yesterday's loss with this one.
And that leads you to the deepest reason. If you're constantly cutting winners early, the trigger is fear of reversal. But the deep cause might be an unresolved trauma from a huge loss years ago that's still subconsciously telling you, get out while you can.
So you have to solve that fundamental lack of confidence. It's an intellectual problem that's just, it's masquerading as an emotional one.
Exactly. So now we have the framework emotions as signals, the inchworm for growth. Let's map the 3 biggest culprits that pull that inchworm backward. Let's start with greed.
Yeah, we often hear greed described in, like, moral terms, but psychologically, it's a systematic error.
It's way more complex than just wanting more money. The sources make it clear that greed is a symptom, and it's rooted in scarcity or insecurity.
Scarcity. Like the feeling that if I don't grab this profit right now, it's gone forever.
That's the scarcity mindset. It's also tied up with FOMO, the fear of missing out, or the need for external validation you get from posting a huge win.
And the really dangerous one, the illusion of control when you've had a hot streak.
Which pushes you to chase the thrill, completely overriding your risk analysis.
And the signs you need to map. I mean, when we're talking about overtrading, right? Jumping into trades without a proper setup just because the market is moving.
Or holding winners for way too long, thinking it has to go higher, ignoring your planned exit.
And the cardinal sin, unilaterally increasing your position size after a few wins because your ego convinces you that you're suddenly unbeatable.
If greed is the reckless accelerator, then fear is the sudden paralyzing brake.
Fear is necessary, sure, but in trading, uncontrolled fear, it prevents you from executing your own strategy.
And you see its signs so clearly when a trader hesitates on a perfect setup. They wait for too much confirmation.
And the move is already gone.
Or they cut winners way too early out of sheer fear of reversal just to lock in a tiny profit.
I think we need to break down the different types of fear here, because they're not all the same.
Not at all. There's the obvious fear of loss, which makes you avoid risk altogether, so you undertrade. Then there's FOMO, which, like we said, is that toxic mix of fear and greed.
But the most insidious one is often the fear of being wrong.
Ah, yes. That's tied to ego, to perfectionism.
So it's the trader who sees a perfect textbook pattern, but then waits for the 50-day moving average, the Mackey crossover, and, I don't know, confirmation from 3 different time frames.
And by the time they execute, the move has already happened without them. That paralysis is the ego trying desperately to prevent the pain of failure.
You're sacrificing profit to protect your self-image.
Right, and when greed and fear collide and the pressure just becomes too much, we get to tilt.
Which is, hands down, the most destructive state for a trader. It's when your emotions completely overwhelm logic, leading to totally irrational behavior.
Behavior that wipes out weeks or even months of gains.
In a single afternoon.
Tilt is the full emotional overload. It's often triggered by a bad beat a trade that should have worked but somehow went sideways, or multiple consecutive losses that just shred your confidence.
Or even missing a massive, obvious trade that would have made your quarter. The self-anger from that can be huge.
And the signs are unmistakable. The classic is revenge trading. Immediately taking a high-risk trade just to win the money back, often double or triple the normal size.
Ignoring the plan entirely. But the most dangerous sign the sources highlight is holding a losing trade and removing the stop loss.
Because you cannot psychologically accept the realized loss. And the sources introduce a specific trigger for this, called the injustice tilt.
Oh, we've all been there. Your stop gets hit by a single tick, and then the market immediately turns and just screams in your original direction.
That feeling of betrayal, that the market is rigged against you. It's highly irrational, but incredibly potent.
Why does that feeling of injustice lead to such high-risk behavior?
Because when you blame the market, when you think the system is unfair, you abandon personal responsibility.
If it's unfair, why bother with rules?
Exactly. That mindset allows you to take completely desperate actions because you're not trying to trade logically anymore. You're trying to get back at the market.
So we've mapped the problems, we have the inchworm framework, now we need the solutions. Once you understand the signals and the anchor, you have to actively build two pillars: confidence and discipline.
Let's start with confidence because the conventional idea of it often leads to arrogance.
Right.
It is essential to clarify what real trading confidence is. It is not believing you will win every trade.
That's overconfidence, and that's dangerous.
It leads to inflated position sizing, ignoring risk. True confidence is the stable belief in your process, your strategy, and your ability to execute correctly, even during a losing streak.
So it's a belief in consistency, not in the certainty of the outcome of any single trade.
Precisely. If a trader is struggling with self-doubt after a few losses, the answer isn't to look for a bigger, riskier win to prove they are good.
Not at all. The answer is to narrow the focus purely onto executing the rules perfectly, regardless of the outcome.
Confidence is earned through consistent adherence to the process. Did I follow my plan? Did I manage the risk? Not by short-term P&L. A confident trader accepts that losses are just part of the game.
And that rigorous, stable focus is tied directly to the final pillar: discipline, which isn't just about resisting temptation.
No, it's the structured system that ensures you stay on plan when emotions inevitably show up.
And to build this system, the sources emphasize tangible tools, like the discipline scorecard.
You have to treat discipline as a trackable metric. At the end of every session, you score yourself. Did I follow my entry rules exactly? Was my position size correct? Did I trade out of boredom?
You're creating an objective record of what feels like subjective behavior. It's moving discipline from a personality trait into a review process.
Yes. And routine is so critical here. A pre-trade routine is non-negotiable. Review your plan, mentally rehearse perfect execution before the market even opens.
And the post-trade routine: journaling emotional mistakes without judgment, reviewing the data objectively. That's what creates the feedback loop for improvement.
We also have to mention the bloated brain problem because that actively undermines all of this.
Oh, that's a massive roadblock in the modern age.
The bloated brain is when a trader tries to process too much information. Too many indicators, constantly watching news feeds, reading conflicting analyses.
This information overload leads directly to paralysis, self-doubt.
And constantly changing strategies, believing the perfect setup is just one more indicator away.
And if you keep changing the rules, you can never build confidence in the system and you can never be disciplined.
You have to simplify. The ability to execute a simple plan perfectly is far more valuable than the ability to overanalyze a complex plan poorly.
So let's synthesize this. We started with emotions as signals, road signs telling you where the issues are. We introduced the inchworm concept for balanced growth, addressing the anchor of your worst habits.
We mapped greed, fear, and tilt right down to the feeling of injustice tilt. And finally, we established the pillars of process-based confidence and track discipline.
The core message is, well, it's clear. The mental game is a skill. It has to be actively trained, just like technical analysis.
Because if your psychological defenses fail, no technical skill, no perfect indicator is going to save your capital.
So the final step is yours, the listeners. Commit to tracking your emotional patterns today. Don't just dismiss frustration. Use that discipline scorecard. Start fixing the deep root causes, the back end of your inchworm.
And remind yourself that success is not a straight line. Sticking to a defined, repeatable process is what separates the best from everyone else.
And here's the provocative thought for you to carry forward. Every professional trader, every hedge fund, every serious retail player, they all have access to the same charts, the same indicators, the same data.
Therefore, your ability to manage fear, greed, and tilt, your commitment to the mental work, your structural discipline, is not just some psychological virtue. It is your single greatest, non-replicable competitive advantage in the market.
Now that you have the tools, will you commit to the mental work required to maintain that edge?
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now go apply these lessons and train your mind.